So you're looking to retire early. You're not alone, but there's certain things that need to be done in order to make the transition as smooth as possible. It's a lot more than just quitting your job. There are certain strategies that can make it much more manageable and easier to make the transition. Early retirement isn't right for everybody. Oftentimes people that come to us to ask for early retirement are dreamers. They didn't put in the work or the savings, they didn't pay off their debt quick enough, and it's really just not a good fit. For those of you that put the work in, have a lot of years of service, debt's under control, then it's quite possible. Our average client now retires about 2 years earlier than they expected to. So if they were planning on going to work to 62 because they thought they needed to go there, we can get them out at 60, 59, even 58 sometimes. So there's a few strategies that you can use or tips that are going to help you, understand if it's right for you and how early you can possibly go. So let's dive right in. So first and foremost, you got to decide what early retirement is for you. Some people say early retirement and they think 50. Some people think early retirement is 67 because they thought they were going to 70 and that's early for them. So when we say early on this channel or whenever we're talking about it, in terms of Washington State and the pension systems, they consider early retirement anything before age 65. 65 is full retirement. Anything before that is considered early. Now, for those of you that have 30 years of service, if you're hired after May 1st of 2013, or hired before May 1st, 2013, 30 years of service enables you to go collect early at 62. So 62 with no penalties if you fall into that category with 30 years. Now, even if you are going earlier than that, there's going to be penalties that apply. The important thing to understand here is that while a penalty is, negative and it means less money, it doesn't mean you need to avoid them. Sometimes penalties are worth it for the greater outcome. Right? It's just like if you watch a really close basketball game towards the end, you'll see that the losing team will intentionally foul the other team to stop the clock. Yes, it's a penalty. The other team gets a free throw and a chance to score points, but the benefit there is it stops the clock. It gives your team a chance to get the rebound, to go down court and make the shot. So strategically, taking penalties can have great outcomes when they work out. The same thing is true with your pension plan. Taking retirement earlier, let's say at age 60, and taking a 5% penalty, and to start your retirement income a whole 2 years earlier can really have really great outcomes. That 5% deduction is something that you won't even notice, and often takes people 20, almost 30 years before the break even, or before they'll actually even see that difference affect them. So don't rule out early retirement just because the pension has penalties on them. Social Security has a penalty anytime you take before 67, and yet a lot of people, when they talk to us, have every intention to take that thing at 62 and take a 30% penalty on their Social Security, because Social Security doesn't promote it as a penalty. They just said, hey, you can take it at 62, it's just less because you're getting it early. Same thing Washington State. You can get your pension as early as 55 if you have 30 years, and it's going to be about 20% less, but they always advertise as a penalty. It's the same formula. You're taking it earlier, therefore you get less because you're going to be collecting it longer. So if you're going for early retirement, don't let the word penalty scare you. Go through the numbers and kind of see what the math works out to be. How much income is left after they take the reductions, and is that still enough to cover the bills that you need? And is getting that income several years earlier going to offset the gain or the penalty you would have avoided had you waited longer? Next part of retirement, and the big one, is healthcare. So anytime you're going to go before 65, that's when Medicare starts. You need some type of healthcare coverage because your employer's not paying for it anymore. So you got to figure out how I'm going to cover it. PEB is one option to go with. That's what a lot of my clients use. But premiums can be anywhere from $1,200 to $1,800 per month for a couple. And that can be quite steep. So you can either continue to work at a part-time basis somewhere, you can have side income to pay for it, or you can look at other options. I know some people like to use Cobra, which it's temporary. It can be expensive. Sometimes it can be even more than the PEB. So I wouldn't jump right into Cobra before you compare costs, because you end up paying more there. If your income drops low enough, there's a chance you can get on to Washington Health Plan Finder and get a low-cost healthcare plan from them that's cheaper than the PEB system. If you're going to go that route, just make sure you still fill out the PEB application. PEB has a strict rule, goes 60 days prior and 60 days after. So it's like a 4-month window that you have to at least fill the application in to defer coverage. So if you're going to go and let's say you're covered through your spouse's insurance, you're working through a different job and they have coverage, or you're going through Cobra or Washington Health Plan Finder, whatever the case is, let people at PEB know that you're interested, but you're going to defer your eligibility. If you don't defer eligibility and that 120-day window goes by, you are no longer allowed to enroll in PEB in the future. So you can use anything you want for healthcare. Just make sure you tell PEB what your plans are so you can keep your eligibility, keep your spot or the right to come back and purchase that coverage from them in the future. Now, one of my favorite tips I've been talking about a lot of lately is using the TAP annuity to help cover or offset this cost. So for example, let's say you just put $100,000 into the TAP annuity, and let's say all it generated was, let's say it kicked out $6,000 per year, $500 per month. That $500 a month can make a big dent in that $1,200 to $1,800 a month healthcare bill. Now, if you want to have more of a cover, you can put more in. But even having just a little bit in that TAP annuity, have just a little bit extra guaranteed income can make a big difference when you're trying to budget for healthcare, especially for early retirement. The next part of going for early retirement is figuring out what your gap is or how much you need to bridge. So for example, if you're retiring at 58 and the pension doesn't start till 65, I got 7 years that I cover my income for. If I only need about $4,000 per month over 7 years, it's about $336,000 that I need to have with me. So in order to structure that bridge, you need to have money set aside in cash, some kind of middle range option like bonds, and then you have something for growth, your stocks, index funds, things like that. So you need to have your investment structured in a way to produce that $4,000 per month. So as long as you have it structured, there's not much that can happen in those first few years that can really throw it off. So if we have 2 years in cash, that at least gets us to age 60. Now, if I have another 2-3 years in, let's say, some kind of bond fund that doesn't move much, I know that gets me to 62, 63. Worst case scenario there, I can always turn Social Security on, or I can tap into the pension, earlier and pay the penalty if I wanted to. So just having those buckets and the safe structures will at least get you closer to your goal. So you may not hit your plan exactly, but at least you get to certain key ages where you're not eligible to have other income streams turn on. Now, another great thing with the retirement is it actually unlocks a lot of tax strategies for you earlier. So while you're working, there's not a lot of tax strategies we can use. But when you retire, it's game on. There's a lot more room we can do depending on your income and how old you are. So some of the best tax strategies to look into when you're retiring earlier, especially before the required minimum distributions start at age 73 or 75, or before Social Security starts, are things like Roth conversions, moving money from pre-tax to Roth, harvesting capital gains at 0% tax. So if you have money in a brokerage account, you can actually earn up to something like $80,000 as a household and still be in a 0% capital gains tax bracket. So that means you take all your income plus whatever you earn from that portfolio. As long as you're under the threshold, you would owe 0% of gains on that money. That is a tax loophole that a lot of people don't know about, but if your income is low enough with early retirement, it's something you 100% should use. Now, those two strategies often have trickle-down effects, such as reducing your RMDs in the future because you're converting or withdrawing some of the gains out earlier, so you'll have less money to pay required minimum distributions on in the future, which could potentially lead to you paying less in Medicare taxes. It also allows you to draw down taxable accounts in a strategic way to maximize the tax-free Roth accounts, for example. So these tax strategies will often have trickle-down or ripple effects with other tax strategies that you won't even witness or experience till much later down the road. The next thing to know before you pull the trigger in early retirement is the risks that come with it. When you retire earlier, your money now has to last longer. You have to bridge further before you get to the Social Security, this pension, or the Medicare ages. And there's more likelihood that you're going to either overspend, underestimate the healthcare costs in early retirement, or even late retirement. There's the sequence of return risks if you're going off market-based stuff, or you might live longer than expected. So there's a lot of different risks that you have to deal with and understand before you pull the trigger on it. The best way to go and deal with all these risks is making sure that whatever expenses that you plan on having that are fixed, that aren't going to go away anytime soon, is to make sure those are covered from guaranteed income sources. So make sure your Social Security, pension, TAP annuity can cover all of those fixed expenses. So fixed income covers your fixed expenses. And then if you're wanting to take money off of the market, those should cover your variable expenses. Expenses that you can reduce or cut, they're not necessary to your lifestyle. They're nice to have, they're luxury, but they're not actually necessary. So just having that will go a long way for helping you not run out of money. Because even if you were below it all, if you had all of your income coming from fixed sources, then you could still live your life and cover all the bills you need to. While it may not be as cushy, at least you got a roof over your head and everything's taken care of because you guaranteed at least that part of retirement with guaranteed income. Now, if you are taking money out of the market, try to keep it under 5% withdrawal. If you have the bucket set properly, you should be able to maintain a 5% distribution strategy if you manage it correctly. Heavy on the if part. There's a lot of people that don't know how to manage money or get too emotional and will make decisions based on how they feel their opinions or on headlines. So in this past April, markets were going through the dumpster with all the tariff stock. That's when I had all my client reviews in for the year, and there's a lot of them that asked, should we change anything? And the answer was, we just stay the course, that we don't react to markets like this. We have to have a long-term time horizon. And fast forward a couple months now, market bounced back and we're actually up on the year. So us not selling off when the market was down 10%, or 5% back in April, now the clients are up, a whole, 2%, 5% more, just because they didn't got emotional. They had me to talk them off the ledge. So planning with their retirement, it's important to have someone there that you can bounce ideas off of and not get too emotional, or making irrevocable decisions like selling off when the markets aren't cooperating with your strategy. So while retirement sounds nice, it's definitely not for everybody. There's a lot of risk involved in it, and I'll be the first person to tell you that it's not a good idea. I had a couple come in last week that she really didn't retire. She had about 30 years of service and she was eligible to retire, but looking at the numbers, they just had too much going on. The expenses were just too high. We didn't have quite enough saved. We're still about $400,000 shy. If they wanted to replace their income as is, they probably have to wait a few years, which isn't what I wanted to tell them because she was so excited and ready to retire, but their expenses were just too high. Until they could get through the budget and cut things out, or come up with extra money, it just wasn't going to make sense. So they're one of the couples that I had to tell no to. I hadn't had another couple come through a few years back. They wanted to retire very early, like early 50s. They're going to take max penalties and everything because they were just done. They wanted to, travel the world. They wanted to live overseas, all that, kind of the whole nomad lifestyle. And I had to tell them that wasn't a good idea either because the money just wasn't there. They didn't work long enough. They didn't have enough saved. Their spending was too high. Even though they planned on selling everything off and living overseas, there's a lot they didn't think about, like healthcare costs, what they're going to do with their animals. Are they keeping their home? Are they not? Are they covering the property taxes? If they're working overseas, how is those taxes going to work? So they had these really big ideas. You can tell they watched a lot of travel YouTube, but they didn't dig down into, how would it actually work for them in their situation? Do they actually have the funds necessary, to live and still travel like they wanted to? Retirement may seem nice and something you feel like you want or deserved, or you feel like you've saved enough. It doesn't always mean that you should or can accomplish it. I mean, anyone can retire early. Whether or not it's going to work out is yet to be seen. So having someone to bounce ideas off of, to dig deeper in your situation, is usually the first step to retire early. I want to go early without having some kind of formal plan done that they can run through all the different scenarios. Because while it may look good on paper on your Excel sheet, there's certain things that you may not be seeing coming up down the road that could absolutely derail you. Now, retirement isn't one size fit all. It's not retire and do nothing. There's different versions to it. Some people will retire early from the state but continue to work somewhere else. They'll work part-time, they'll start their own company, they'll do different things. So retirement is different for everybody. It's not all I have to be completely done and never work again. There's different stages to it. So if you're tired of doing current job at Washington State but you want to do something else, that's still considered early retirement Washington State size, and you can start supplementing your income so you can pursue other passions or other jobs that you wanted to try. So if you need more help going through the numbers to figure out if retirement is a good idea for you or not, the link to book a call is in the description below. We also have the free community going on. If you want to ask other people that I've helped retire early, I've got a group of over 100 people, most of them I met with personally, that you can go in and ask questions for. Some of them are still working, some retired early. You can go in and ask them questions about what they did, what their strategies were, what their challenges were. So instead of just hearing from me or reading some blog, you can ask real life people in Washington State that have been in your shoes before and get real world insight. So the link to join that is in the description below. And until next time, remember that your future depends on what you do today.